Amara sold jasmine blooms outside the Shin Tower Hotel every evening after school. 8 years old, slight as a shadow, just another forgotten child to the men in tailored suits who streamed past her. What none of them knew was that she spoke Mandarin. Her father, who had passed 3 years ago, had been from Chengdu. He had sat with her every night before bed, teaching her the language like it was a lullaby. Now it was just Amara and her grandfather, stretching every dollar, praying the landlord would be patient one more month. So Amara sold flowers and kept her eyes open and her ears sharper. She had seen the hotel's owner exactly twice. Ryu 36, sharp-jawed, glacier-cold, the kind of man who moved through the world like it owed him something. His lead bodyguard sometimes spoke Mandarin when he thought no one was listening. He was wrong. And at 5:47 on a Wednesday evening, Amara heard 4 words that stopped her heart cold. When the door closes, she looked at the black car idling at the curb, looked at the guards with their quiet, satisfied smiles, and understood with absolute certainty that someone was about to die. 17 minutes earlier, Ryu stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office and surveyed the city below him the way a man surveys something he has already won. 36 years old. Self-built, ruthless by design. He had learned early that sentimentality was a luxury that got people buried, and he had no intention of being buried. His phone buzzed. Jin, his driver. "Car ready, sir." Ryu checked his watch. 5:31 p.m. precisely. He lived by schedule because schedule meant control and control meant survival. Every day, same sequence. Depart office at 5:50. Enter vehicle at 6:00. Home by 6:14. Security Chief Pavel appeared in the doorway. "Tomorrow's Seoul delegation has confirmed, sir." Ryu still didn't look up from his desk. "And that's all, sir, then you're done here." Pavel's expression tightened almost imperceptibly, but he left. Good. Feelings were noise. Ryu had no patience for noise. Outside on the pavement, life ran on a completely different clock. Amara held a stem of jasmine toward a woman in a cream coat. "Only $2, ma'am, they smell beautiful." The woman didn't slow. Amara had been here since school let out at 3:15. She had sold 6 flowers, $12, enough to buy rice and maybe a small tin of sardines. Not enough for the water bill her grandfather had folded into his shirt pocket that morning and said nothing about. Her feet ached inside shoes that were one size too small. Her stomach hadn't been quiet all afternoon, but she smiled at the next person who walked past. "Fresh jasmine, sir." Nothing. She was used to nothing. At 8 years old, black and poor and small, she was wallpaper. But wallpaper heard everything. Pavel and 2 other guards were smoking near the hotel's side entrance, speaking Mandarin in low, comfortable voices. Comfortable because no one around them could possibly understand. Amara understood every syllable. Pavel was saying, "Remote trigger. Sasha has the detonator. When the door closes and he settles in, we send the signal." The second guard exhaled smoke. "And if he somehow walks away?" Pavel's answer was a short, cold laugh. He patted the inside of his jacket. "He won't." Amara's jasmine basket nearly fell from her hands. She looked at the black car at the curb. Ryu car. The car he stepped into every single day at exactly 6:00 p.m. Her hands were trembling. Drop a heart if you're already holding your breath. 8-year-old Amara just overheard a Mandarin assassination plot that no one else on that street could understand, and she has 17 minutes to warn a man who has never once looked at her. 5:35 p.m. 15 minutes left. Amara thought fast. The guards were the threat. Hotel security wouldn't believe a child with a flower basket. And Ryu himself, she had never spoken a single word to him. She thought of her father's voice. "Being afraid is allowed, my star. Doing nothing is not." She moved. Jin, the driver, was standing beside the car scrolling through his phone. He had a patient face. Amara approached carefully. "Excuse me, sir, do you speak Mandarin?" Jin glanced down, surprised. "A little." "Why?" "The guards, the ones from inside, they were just talking and they said something about the car and a signal," and she stopped. She could see it happening, the polite patience draining from his face. "Kid, I can't help you. I'm working." "Please," they said when the door closes. Jin turned back to his phone. "I'm not playing games with you. Go sell your flowers." He wasn't cruel, he was simply done. Amara stepped back. The hotel clock above the entrance read 5:41 p.m. 19 minutes gone. 11 remaining. She had tried the driver. She had no way to reach the guards who weren't in on it. She'd been thrown off the hotel steps 2 months ago for even standing in the doorway. There was only one option left, and it was the most terrifying one. She would have to put herself directly in Ryu Seo's path and refuse to be invisible. He would think she was a nuisance. She would have to be louder than his indifference. Her whole body was shaking, but she thought of her father again, of the way he'd squeeze her hand and say, "Small people change big things, Amara." Always. She positioned herself at the exact spot where Ryu Seo would have to pass her on the way to the car. Smash that like button if you're screaming at the screen right now. She's 8 years old and she's the only one standing between that man and a bomb. 5:56. The hotel doors opened and Ryu Seo came through them like a man who had somewhere more important to be, phone at his ear, briefcase in hand, eyes on nothing and no one. Jin straightened and reached for the rear door handle. "Mr. Seo," Amara said. Too high, too desperate. He didn't even flicker. "Mr. Seo, please don't get in the car." He brushed past her shoulder like she was a gust of wind. His security details started closing the gap. She grabbed his sleeve. She felt the fabric expensive and smooth, and she held on. Ryu stopped, looked down at the small brown hand gripping his jacket. His expression was winter. "Remove your hand. Please listen to me. Just for 1 second, please." He pulled his arm free, already turning toward the car. Amara's voice cracked wide open. "They said when the door closes, boom, remote detonation. Sasha has the trigger." Ryu went completely still. He turned slowly, and for the first time in her life, Amara felt the full weight of his attention. "What did you say?" She was already speaking Mandarin, her father's Mandarin, every word clean and exact. "Device under the car, remote signal. Backup if he survives." Pavel gave the order. She said the names. She said the positions. She said everything she had heard, word for word, in the language they had thought was their secret. Ryu's face had gone to stone. He looked at the car. Looked at Pavel, across the street now. Hands loose at his sides, watching. Looked back down at this child with her basket of jasmine. "Jin." His voice was absolutely quiet. "Step away from the vehicle, do not touch it." Jin went pale and moved back immediately. Pavel began walking toward them, casual, but his right hand was drifting toward his jacket. Ryu stepped in front of Amara, one clean, instinctive movement. "Jin, code red, lock the building. Nobody leaves the perimeter," and then softer to the girl behind him. "How long have they been planning tonight?" she told him. He checked his watch. 5:58, 2 minutes. Everything that happened next happened with the cold efficiency of a man who had built a security empire for exactly this reason. His real team, not Pavel's compromised unit, came through the hotel doors within 90 seconds. Pavel saw them coming, assessed his odds, and ran. He made it 4 steps. The other guards didn't even make that far. "Sir, we need to move you back." Jin's voice was shaking. 1 minute first. Ryu looked down at Amara. "You're absolutely certain about what you heard?" She nodded. She had never been more certain of anything. "Call the bomb squad," Ryu said, "and call the police." He kept his eyes on Pavel being pinned to the pavement. "If she's wrong, this is very embarrassing for me and very serious for her." His eyes returned to hers. "But she's not wrong." 5:59. The street was clearing. Blue and red lights strobed in the distance. The bomb squad arrived in 9 minutes. Everyone was pushed back 3 blocks. Amara sat on a curb wrapped in a foil emergency blanket, her jasmine basket at her feet, watching men in heavy suits surround the car she had kept a man from entering. Ryu Seo came and sat beside her on the curb. His expensive suit, his empire, his cold precision, all of it reduced to just a man sitting at street level next to a child. "What's your name?" "Amara." "Amara, how old are you?" 8. He was quiet long enough that she looked up at him. "You speak Mandarin. My dad taught me before he passed. I'm sorry." He said it like he actually was. The bomb squad leader walked over, glanced at Amara, then at Ryu. "Sir, the device was real. Remote detonator. Planted under the chassis. If it had been triggered," he stopped. "She's 8, the man said quietly. "I know." Ryu looked at Amara for a long time. "Thank you," he said. "You saved my life tonight." The relief hit her all at once. She cried, not from fear anymore, but because after every adult had turned away, after every door had been closed in her face, one person had finally listened. Drop a heart if that hit your chest. She spoke Mandarin to a man who thought she was a nuisance, and it saved his life with 60 seconds to spare. 2 hours later, Amara sat in a room she had no frame of reference for. Ryu Seo's private conference room, high above the city, glass on every wall, the skyline spread out like something from a dream. Her grandfather sat beside her, his hand wrapped tight around hers, his eyes moving between awe and terror and pride all at once. "Baby, you should have come home. You should have come home and called someone. I tried to tell people, Grandpa. Nobody listened." Ryu entered with Jin, both of them looking like men who had just survived something they were still processing. Pavel confessed, Ryu said, settling into the chair across from them. My business rivals paid him $400,000. He recruited 3 others. The plan had been in motion for 6 weeks. He looked directly at Amara. 6 weeks, and a child selling flowers outside my hotel was the only person who uncovered it. Grandfather started to speak. Mr. CEO, we don't expect anything. She was just trying to do the right thing. That's exactly why I owe her everything. Ryu's voice was quiet but absolute. He slid a folder across the table. Amara watched her grandfather open it. His hands started to shake. The deed to a 3-bedroom apartment, mortgage paid in full, safe neighborhood, good schools. Ryu looked at the old man. You will not worry about your home again. That's too much, sir. It is not enough. He turned to Amara. And you, he said, are going to the best private school in this city starting next semester. Full scholarship through university. Study whatever you want, be whatever you choose. Grandfather was crying silently. Amara didn't have words. I walked past you every evening for 8 months, Ryu said. Saw a street kid. Saw someone I didn't need to notice. His jaw tightened. You saw a man who was about to be killed and you fought through every wall I had built to stop it. That's not bravery. That's something rarer than bravery. There's one more thing. He stood and moved to the window. I want to set up a trust fund for your future. Education, opportunities, whatever your dream turns out to be. My grandfather says I shouldn't take too much from strangers, Amara said carefully. Ryu almost smiled. Tell your grandfather I'm not doing this because I owe you. I'm doing it because I have spent 10 years believing that people are either useful or dangerous. He looked at her. And you just proved me wrong about everything. 1 week later, Ryu sat in his office surrounded by the work of dismantling and rebuilding his own security from the ground up. Every background check, every loyalty assessment, every wall and protocol examined. But it wasn't the security architecture keeping him awake. It was simpler than that. It was the memory of walking out of his hotel the way he had every day, phone to his ear, eyes on nothing, walking past a child who had been trying to save his life. How many times had he done that, he kept thinking. How many people had he walked through without seeing? Chen knocked. Sir, a visitor. Amara appeared in the doorway, her school backpack new, her shoes new, a careful look on her face. I don't want to bother you. You're not bothering me. Come in. She sat at the edge of the chair the way she sat on that curb, like she was ready to stand again quickly if needed. The new apartment is incredible, she said. Grandpa cried again this morning. Happy. The happiest. A small pause. Mr. CEO, can I ask you something? Anything. Why did you do so much? Most people would have just said thank you and moved on. Ryu took a moment. Because you saved more than my life, he said. You saved something I didn't know I was losing. She waited. I built everything I have by deciding that caring about people was weakness, that the only safety was distance. He looked at her. And then a little girl I'd walked past hundreds of times risked her life to protect me. Not because I deserved it, not because she'd gain anything, because it was the right thing to do. You're a good person, Amara said simply. I'm trying to become one, he said. Because of you. She got up, walked around the desk, and hugged him. It was the most disarming thing anyone had done to him in 15 years. He sat very still for a moment, and then carefully he hugged her back. And some long frozen thing in him quietly began to thaw. 6 months later, a new community center opened in the neighborhood where Amara and her grandfather had struggled for years. The Amara and Joseph Community Center, the hand-painted sign read, Joseph being her grandfather who had wept when Ryu told him. Free tutoring, hot meals, after-school programs, language classes, everything that had been missing. Amara cut the ribbon with both hands, grinning so wide her face couldn't contain it. Ryu stood beside her grandfather, watching. You didn't have to do this, the old man said. I absolutely did. Ryu watched Amara run toward a cluster of neighborhood kids already crowding the reading room. She saved one life, he said. This place will help hundreds. The math will never be even. She'd say it is, her grandfather said softly. She would. He paused. She's 8 years old and she already understands something I spent 36 years refusing to learn. After the ceremony, Amara found him in the reading room. She was showing 2 smaller children how to find books by subject. What do you think? He asked. I think kids who don't have much are going to come here and feel like they have everything, she said. You made something good, Mr. CEO. We made something good. Your name is on the building. Your heart is in it. She tilted her head at him the way she always did when she was assessing something. Grandpa says you laugh now. Sometimes. He crossed his arms. Does that seem weird? No, she considered it. It seems right. When you're on, the framed photograph on Ryu Seo's desk showed Amara at 8 years old, jasmine basket in both arms, caught mid-laugh by a press photographer on the day the community center opened. Jin knocked. Sir, Amara's teacher called. Something about her end-of-year assessment. Ryu looked up sharply. Is there a problem? No, sir. She's top of her class across every subject. They want to discuss accelerated placement options. Ryu set down his pen. Schedule it. I'll be there. Sir, you don't have to attend every school meeting. I want to be there, Ryu said. And he meant it the way he had learned to mean things, fully, without calculation. After Jin left, Ryu looked at the photograph again. A year ago, he had been 90 seconds from the end, surrounded by compromised men he had paid fortunes to trust, isolated by every wall he had ever built. And the only person who had tried to stop it was a child he'd never once actually seen, standing at the edge of his world with a basket of flowers, brave enough to grab a stranger's sleeve and refuse to let go. He had spent a decade building an empire. The best thing he had built was this. Not the hotels, not the holdings, not the carefully engineered empire of distance and control. This, knowing that somewhere in the city, a brilliant little girl was sitting in class at the top of her grade, in a neighborhood that was slowly, genuinely getting better because he had finally, with 2 minutes to spare, listened to the smallest voice in the room. The one that had always mattered most. Tell me in the comments, what was the moment that got you? Was it when she spoke Mandarin to prove she understood? When she grabbed his sleeve? The hug in his office? The community center? If you've ever been dismissed when you knew you were right, or if you've ever witnessed a child do something that humbled every adult in the room, share it below. Drop a heart if this story stayed with you. Subscribe for more stories about courage that comes from the most unexpected places, transformation that begins in the smallest moments, and the truth that wisdom has never once cared about age or status. Sometimes the person who saves you is the one you never thought to see.